Hi everyone, so in this video I want to talk about how I managed to retire at 33, mainly just based off of my engineering income. And to do this, I'm going to focus on 4 factors that I think were essential to me pulling this off. And I'll try to describe things in a way that is applicable to other people and that other people may find useful, especially if they're considering trying to aim for this goal of retiring early. Now, off the bat, this is not for everyone. What I described does involve certain lifestyle choices that might not be acceptable or plausible for some people. But if you do have a minimalist inclination and if you are probably a bit solitary, frankly, then this might be quite appealing to you, and you might find at least some bits and pieces that you would benefit from. With that in mind, I'll start with the first factor. First factor is working in a high-paying field. So this obviously increases your income, so you have more money from which you can save in order to get to some target goal. Now, the target number I'm going to focus on here that I retired on was $200,000. And so let's say you graduate at 23 and you're working until 33, let's say 10 years, and you're able, if you work in engineering field and you're getting $50,000, which is the average engineering income salary in the US, then it's plausible that you could save $20,000 a year and you'll have $200,000, even if you didn't invest the money and you didn't get any interest on it or anything like that. So this gives you an idea how the math can work out. Some of you are probably thinking, well, $200,000 is not enough, but I'll address that in some of the later factors I'm going to get to. Now, let's move on to the second factor. Second factor is living a minimalist lifestyle. So obviously, in order to save money, you have to make money, which is what the first factor is about, but you have to also not spend money. And this is where minimalism comes in. There's no shortage of videos and books you can look up about minimalism. Basic idea is you don't want to spend on anything that is not absolutely essential. So let's say with regards to transportation, you definitely you wouldn't get a status symbol, you wouldn't get a fancy car, but you would ideally not even get a car at all. Just walk, use a bicycle, public transport, etc. And this sacrifice, arguably a sacrifice, depends on the way you look at it actually. But in any case, by living this way, you can save lots of money. You could live with roommates, you could live with your parents, you could if you want to be really extreme, it comes down to, generally, of course, don't eat out. You make your own food or should get something cheap. With regards to relationships, you might be better to not be in a relationship, especially as a guy, as you'll probably spend more money in a relationship. Now, some of these sound more extreme than others. I actually did not follow these things to a T. I followed some of them some of the time. And had I followed them more, I would have saved more money, or I would have been able to retire in my 20s. But this gives you an idea of the kinds of things that you can do in order to save more money, in order to not spend that much and have more money that you can put aside. And the main question you'll have to ask yourself is basically, what's more important to me? Is eating out more important to me than retiring early, or is retiring early more important than eating out for me now, for example? Or it could be a bigger question like relationship. What's more important to me? Do I need to be in a relationship and be able to spend the money that probably comes with being in a relationship, or do I want to retire? What's my main goal? And you'll have to ask yourself that if you want to, retire early. But if you go really extreme, you can definitely put yourself in a position to retire in your 20s. As I said, I retired, at 33, and I followed just some of these things some of the time. Now I'll move on to the third factor. So in my case, I invested my savings in a low-fee index fund. So I'll mention it's the Vanguard VOO, which follows the S&P 500. It's an S&P 500 index fund, basically. So it just follows the average of the economy. I didn't want to really stress or think about what I was doing with investments or try to pick the right stock or that sort of thing. I just put it in an index fund that follows the overall economy. And in my case, this does probably involve some degree of luck, but if you followed the economy at least for the past 10 years or more, things generally, the stock market has been regularly going up. So it was a good time to put it, and that made a difference. That helped make up for the lack of savings that I did. So even though I didn't really follow the second principle of minimalism to a T, I managed to still make up some of that loss by having the index fund make up for my low savings, and it basically allowed me to get to $200,000 nevertheless by 33. Now onto the fourth factor. Fourth factor, this addresses probably the big question many of you have of how is $200,000 enough to retire on. So the fourth factor is moving to a cheap country. That's what it comes down to, moving to a cheap developing country where the cost of living is really low, and also where there are high interest fixed deposit accounts. So at a high level, I don't want to get to like all the detailed numbers, but the basic idea is that you can set things up in a way whereby you're earning somewhere between 7 to 10% interest rate, and on US dollars, and you can get you can set it up in a way whereby if you have $200,000, you'll be getting close to $1,000 each month in interest. And if you get $1,000 in it, this will be more than enough to meet all your needs. And you can actually live in some of these countries, like say in Southeast Asia, on like $500 a month. But in any case, let's just assume you'll be getting around $1,000 income. And to account for inflation, you can set things up with regards to the deposit accounts in a way whereby the amount of interest that you'll get paid will increase over time to keep up with inflation. I think it's sort of beyond the scope of this video to get into all these minute details, but the basic idea is that you can put your money in a deposit account that pays you monthly interest that covers all your costs, and you'll take into account inflation with the way that you set up the accounts. And that's basically it. So to kind of recap, work in a high-paying field, that's number one. Number two, live a minimalist lifestyle. Number three, invest possibly in sort of at least in just a low index S&P 500 fund. And number four, move to a cheap country such as in Southeast Asia or elsewhere where ideally cost of living is low and where they have fixed deposit accounts that pay high interest. And that's basically it. The only last thing I'll add is in order to pull this off, I was inspired by different books that I read. I'm going to put links to them. One book is Extreme Early Retirement, which at least gave me the idea that this is possible. And the other book was actually detailed exactly how you would do this, at least the part about moving to a developing country and setting up the fixed deposit accounts and that sort of thing. And I think that is it. So hopefully you found this useful and beneficial, and good luck to you on your early retirement journey or financial independence.